topic now is what are readings? Okay, so we have two people. We need two people for a reading. One person, which is the reader, and another person, which is the sitter or the readee. I like the word sitter because the person really just sits in on an activity that you are doing. So I like that word. It really is relevant for me, and but it makes a nice distinction actually, because then there's no confusion about using similar words. Okay, so the very first thing we need to do a reading is a connection between two people. I read a lot of reports on social media and on the internet that deal with how to work on my intuition, how to really grow the skill that I have, which is a natural ability, and how to get it right. So the cornerstones of this course is going to be number one, conditioning, which means that we get you comfortable in a certain place, in a certain position, and doing certain activities in your mind that is going to help you to connect better with people and to be able to then get information from them. So we really get a lot of information just generally from outside of ourselves. I think one of the things just before you go to bed is that you would then get a lot of imagery and even voices and so on. And a lot of people say, well, that is, coming from inside of ourselves and from our psyche. I think we don't really know enough about humans and the human connection ability to say exactly what is possible and what is not. So this is not really the point of this discussion. We're going to really tangibly, physically speak to people, connect to them, and then we are going to, with tools and conditioning and with skills that we learn in this course, we are then going to do a reading for them. When we make a connection, we make a connection from our crown chakra to somebody else's crown chakra, and I'm going to go more into this a little bit later. But what really happens is that we find that person in all the other different people in the world. Everybody has a uniqueness to them. We then connect to that unique person by their unique traits. We going to, in the classes, use the voice and then the person's name, and then we're going to have an impression so that we get of a color of that person, and we're going to make a connection. That's just looking ahead. I'm going to go through that in detail. This is just to state that we are making a connection to someone. That connection is from our crown to their crown. We can make connections in different ways. I will also go through that. But this is how it starts. So we need to make a connection to that person. That is really the core component of, tapping into our intuition in relation to someone else, is making sure that we are connected to that person. Secondly, what's really important is that when I look at someone else, what I do is I don't look at someone else through the lens of my experiences. Yes, absolutely. What happens often is that you get shown that some of your experiences are relevant to them, and you would give a message, but that message is always objective. We have an objectivity about someone else's life that they don't have. This happens a lot with our friends, with relatives, and those sort of people, where when we have somebody in our circle of trust, we then have a situation that we're dealing with. Because we are stuck in the situation and we are dealing with it personally, we have a lot of dynamics that act in on us, and we are sometimes looking at the secondary components of that, basically how we are affected, and then we are not always so clear on what is happening outside of ourselves, what is interacting on us, what is the factors that are causing the feelings that we have, the experiences that we have, the emotions that we have. And this is where it's really powerful to go to someone for counseling, for advice, for perspective. And the nice thing about intuitive readings is that we really get a very different perspective, and this perspective is almost like a preemptive perspective. It is what's happening inside of ourselves, and then what the powerful part of this is that when we have that objectivity from someone else to say, look, this is happening inside of yourself, you can then choose to change it. And then once you change your inner workings, your thought, your basically your perspective of things, you change your thoughts on things, you change your emotional states about things, you can then change the physical state or the physical appearance of your life. That is really what the key component is of this. That is really the power of readings. So we need to understand that when you are having a sitter in front of you, that you are being objective. You don't want to give a judgment or pass a judgment on the experience. All you do is you report on it. So we see what images we get and we report on it. We basically give the image, we want to give the information through to them. And then if something has relevance to us, if we say, well, typically when I see this, then it means that for me, the person on the other side can then use that information or not use it, they can discard it. But very often when we give them the impressions, they can then form a connection between what's happening inside of themselves and then what they're experiencing from the world around them. The next thing, like you see my little mannequins, I put in I know. The whole point about this I know statement is that now this person has more knowledge about what could be happening inside of themselves, what is maybe a situation that's acting on them, something that is interacting with them, or something that is prevalent inside of, say more the intuitive space or so. And that can give them a perspective of what they can be dealing with. The whole point of the information is to guide and assist, and meaning that this person then has that information to go forward with. They can then make decisions based on that. What happens often, I've been to a lot of readings in my life, and what I found really helpful was that sometimes people give you a perspective on what is happening in your life, and they say, look, this is what you want. You are driving towards this, but everything else in your life is not lined up with that. So what you need to do is you need to accept that you need to wait for the rest of the world to align with whatever you want to do. It's fine to communicate it, but understand everything is not aligned yet. So taking action on this is going to mean that you are going to act on something that is not in alignment with the outside world. You've got to wait until the outside world is in alignment with what you want and then act. And this I've used very powerfully, and I have cut out a lot of frustration and problems in my life based on just this one thing. And that is what makes readings and intuitive readings so very powerful, is that you can get the person the opportunity to see how, if the world is ready for what they are wanting. Often we could see that people want a career change, and we could see, well, the world's not ready for your career change. There are certain other things that are required from you in order for the world to be ready for you. So this is something that is great to know, because then that also gives the other person a nice expectation from their side about what they could get from intuitive reading. When you are doing a reading for someone, they can then expect that you can give them a perspective that is higher than what they can currently experience from just what's happening around them. They can then in some way align themselves with it, or do things that then brings them in alignment with the world outside of themselves. So when they act, whatever they do is then more effective. And this is something I've done with the aid of readings that's been given to me, and that is something that you can do as well, and something that somebody that's sitting in on a reading with you can absolutely do for themselves.